Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. The first loss in quite some time, Ray, and I don't feel all that bad about it. You go up against the number 1 and number 3 point scorers in the league on what has been a less than optimal Avs team, and you knew at some point they're going to get hot. Like, they're going to put it together, even if it was for 40 minutes. Unfortunately, those are the 40 minutes that we decided not to put it together, but the boys battled back. Unlike the last couple of years, I didn't feel when they went down 2-0 that we were out of it. I was like, oh, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's an uphill climb, but they're not out of it, right? That's a feeling I've said I haven't felt in a couple of years, but I felt okay last night. I stayed up, watched the game. Martin Nook, just another beauty. And you fall to the Avs. I mean, you get in late, on the road day because of travel and the storms. It's mile high. It is what it is, right? Our trap game came a game or two later than we thought it would.
Yeah, well, and I know you'll recall, because we both predicted it, that last week when we were on, we had 4 games and we asked how many points did we think we were going to get, and we both said 6, and that's exactly what we came away with out of those 4 games. 6 points.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and it happens so often. We are right all the time.
My son doesn't believe that, even though I tell him that.
And now that we're done breaking our arms, patting ourselves on the back, we've got a great guest lined up with us today. And in through the door and pulling up a chair, one Tom Ray. I love the last name there. You can't go wrong when you're a Ray, right? So, Tom Ray, thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's a great pleasure to be on here with you guys. This is great.
It's our pleasure indeed to have guests join us. And as is always the case in the Storm Cellar, we say that, hockey is for everyone, even though it's not quite for everyone just yet. But we open the doors to everyone. Whether you cheer for the Canes or not, doesn't matter. Come on in. Let's chop up hockey. Let's talk about the Canes. We'll talk about your team. And Tom, you come in here. What we always do, though, is we shine the light on our guests first, because they are the fans. The Caniacs out there, they fuel the team. And in fact, all fans fuel the teams that they support and are an important aspect of the NHL, to say the least. And so we want to find everything out about your journey, your hockey journey. And I understand you spent some time in Calgary. I
sure did.
I apologize. Just kidding. But man, oh man, it's great that you're have someone from around here too that's spent some time stomping the ground of southern Alberta. So I enjoy that. Let's hear it. What is your trail and story about getting into hockey, teams that you loved, and how did you become a Caniac?
Well, that's a great question, and for sure, it has been an interesting story. I played hockey as a little kid out on frozen rinks across Canada. I lived right across Canada through my youth. My dad was in the armed forces, so we traveled right across the country, and I had a chance to enjoy many beautiful cities and wonderful places in Canada. So, I just was a hockey guy. It's in my DNA. And, I was, as a young person, I cheered for the Bruins. I cheered, you had the Big Six and so on, and the original six, and I did that. And then out west, the WHA came along. And you remember, some great teams out there. The Jets had, of course, Hull and some of the other key players they had. Nielsen, Hedberg. I remember that line. It was incredible. And then, of course, I was in around Edmonton when Gretzky was there. So that was incredible. Curry, Gretzky, Coffey. I can go up and down the list. Hockey was incredible. But when they some of these guys went to the WHA from the original NHL side, I was really keen about the WHA. And when Bobby Hull went to Hartford, I decided to kind of follow along. And they had, I don't know if you remember, they had some pretty cool guys. They had Dave Keon and Rick Lee,
Yes,
and a whole bunch of guys. Yeah, it was quite a story. So I followed the Whalers for quite a while. And then, of course, when they moved to Raleigh, actually originally Greensboro,
Yeah.
remember that? I continued to follow them. And of course, I've been with them the entire time. Good, bad, ugly. And most recently, of course, incredible.
Another
Sounds
brother in
familiar,
arms with
Ray.
me. I love that. I absolutely love that. It was funny too because the one thing that I noticed, there was so much anger and vitriol between Hartford and Raleigh when they did the move, and
Yes.
fans chewing everyone out. It was easier for people maybe like you and me who had no geographic tie, and they loved the players. They loved the team. Just
Yeah.
because they're wearing different laundry doesn't mean they're not the same people that you made connections to, right? And so that's why it was maybe easier for us to make the transition than it was for other people. Some people are ride or die Hartford, and the Hurricanes became dead to them, But I mean, it's great that they're actually the team is honoring their history, honoring their lineage. I love that. I wish they could do it more. But that's not totally a popular opinion. I love it. Who was your guy? Like, you've went way, way, way back.
Yes.
You're right there with me. So your favorite player might have been someone a little bit different, a little off the charts, according to Hurricanes fans. Who's your guy?
I don't know. I mean, I obviously I loved Ronnie Francis, and he was a great player. Of course, Brindy when he was playing as well. I mean, these were guys you really, Eric Cole, all those guys. I got to tell you an interesting story. In 2002, you might remember the Canes went to the finals against the Detroit Red Wings.
Yes.
And I actually was lucky enough to go to the game that went 3 overtime periods, and it was insane. Yeah, that game just went forever. It was one of those games where if you've had a few beers and you're watching the game, once it gets into the third overtime, you're just hoping it ends. I mean, let's score.
I was there too, Tom, and it was, and you can vouch for I've said it before, but to back me up, when Detroit scored, it was eerily silent. Like everything just kind of stopped because people were like, did that really just happen? Like, that's not how this is supposed to end. Like with, we won game one, where it's triple overtime. Like we had so many chances, and it was just, I mean, I was living in Clayton at the time, and that was the longest, 40-minute drive of all time.
I don't know.
But you're right. You're right. At some point, you're kind of like, okay, like it's over. Like we've been here for 2 full games, just about, and it was 1:30 in the morning or something. It was crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was.
Well, here's where it gets funny, guys. This is the really funny part. So the next morning, I was flying back to Atlanta. I was living in Atlanta at the time. And I had an early flight. I think it was 10:30 or something. So you just imagine, right? The game ends at 1:30. You have to get up, get on your plane, and so on. And I'm in the line at getting onto the plane, and there's a guy in front of me. He's talking about the game, right? So, and he's an older guy, and I thought this is interesting. So he was talking about it, and it sounded like he was a Wings fan, and I was trying to be a good guy and say, hey, congratulations on your win and so on. And he said, yeah. He said, my son played a pretty good game. I said, what? He said, Chris Draper's my son.
No way. That's awesome. And Chris Draper was one of the good beauties, right? Like, whether you cheered for the Wings or not, he was a beauty. Man, oh man, that's awesome.
That was fun.
I guess so. Now, do you have a favorite on this season's team, which is much different than last year's? I mean, we still have some of the old faces, right? Svechnikov and stuff, but Do you have a favorite on this squad?
I don't know if I have a particular favorite. Again, I think I just like the team. I mean, it'd be easy to say you like guys like Natchez or, Svetch or whatever, the more likely guys. But I don't know. I mean, I like the whole team. I just think they're good people, and I think they're all, good guys working hard to play well.
That's awesome because and I know that having a favorite player, and Brad can vouch for this, and you probably know this too, Tom. When you have a favorite player, there's an emotional tie there.
Yeah.
But this is a business, and players can be traded. And
Yes.
I don't know how you felt, Tom, way back March 4th, 92. Do you remember March 4th, 92?
Who did we
I
trade?
do. It was a day that I cried my eyes out for, I can't even tell you how long, when Hartford traded away Ron Francis to the
Yeah, I
Pittsburgh
thought you were going to say
Penguins.
Francis. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and as a favorite player, when you get a favorite player and they get dealt, it's a harsh reality, right?
Yes.
It's a harsh reality. You cheer as a kid, you cheer for this guy for so long, and you love
Yeah.
everything he does and the way he plays and everything. And now he's going to another team. That's hard. So I
Yeah.
like the way you handle it. It's the team,
Yes.
and perhaps you're a lot more savvy than I was or am at, you know what I mean? Because the team is still there. And so that's an interesting take, and I really appreciate and like it. And Brad, I know you want to jump in here too, for
I
sure.
just wanted to say on the opposite end of the spectrum from that is the person who set the tone for our show, right? That it was going to be about the fans as much as the team.
Yes.
Laura Wheeler was our first guest.
Oh man, yeah.
She was living in Finland. She is a Teuvo Teravainen superstar, right? Like she's the superstar fan.
Yeah.
When he got traded, Laurel was straight up like, love y'all, love the Canes. I am now a Blackhawks fan.
I'm gone.
Yeah. She bounced.
It just hit me because I saw her the other day. She had posted, with her in her Teuvo
Yes.
Blackhawks jersey.
Yes.
And I was like, mad respect for that, right? Love it.
Huge,
But like
yep.
180, she's like, nope, my boy moved. Like I appreciate everything that we've been through the last 4 or 5 years, but I will see y'all later.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought it was great.
Go ahead, Tom.
The other thing I was going to mention is that, the way that the Canes play and Brindamore's style is one where you can embrace new players and really kind of enjoy them. I mean, look what's happening right now. I mean, folks are going crazy for the new players. I mean,
Yep.
It's incredible. And it's part of that whole kind of culture of the Hurricanes, in my view. And it's just a great organization. It's a great bunch of people. And I think a very impressive job done by, Tom Dundon and the leadership of this team. I think they've done an incredible job.
They certainly have. There's something, and even though like guys like, Ron Francis and Aho have been my favorite players, there's one thing that they did that fits perfectly with the style of play, and that is 200-foot players.
Yes.
who still have that work ethic, that lunchbox. We always call them lunchbox players,
Yes.
right? The
Yes.
ones that just go out there and work hard to the best of their ability all the time.
Yep.
Well, that's everyone in the lineup. I mean, when
Yes.
you look at it and stuff, and they hold each other to a very high standard. You know what I mean? Like they look at it and say, nights off, or in cases like last night, 3 goals in 3 minutes that let the game escape. They're going to focus on that, and they're going to say, like, we need to tighten up. And you can bet that that's the way they're going to be on Monday night when they take on another really tough opponent,
Oh, yes.
the Vegas Golden Knights. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's take a look back at the week that was. And we had since the last time we were on, we had 4 games in the lineup. We had the Caps, we had the Flyers, we had the Penguins, and of course last night with the Avs. And yes, we did call 6 points. And here's the funny thing. It's maybe a salve that you can put on the burns from last night. We won the right games, I think, is the most important thing to say about all of that. If you're going to lose in any point, you don't want to lose, but if you're going to lose, let it be against the opposing conference, where those points don't come back to bite you. You look at Pittsburgh, they have a ridiculously bad record against anyone in the Metro. Yes. Anyone in the Metro, namely the Hurricanes, which doesn't hurt my feelings one iota, right? But let's look back and break down those games. The Caps game, man, that was a good one, wasn't it? Like, and
that was my favorite game of the week, I think.
Yeah. It was
a closer
fierce
game, but
and Ovechkin scores, man, he's gonna get Gretzky's record this year, I think. He got 2 more last night. I mean, I think he's on tap. So, and the whole Capitals team, Brad and I last week, we kind of said, look, this will be the test, right? We're going to find out who is legit. And even though the Capitals lost, I think they're still legit. They're going to be one of the teams in the playoffs. They look great, and they're getting good goaltending as well. But we played great, and Kochetkov. I mean, I wish he'd hold on to his stick more.
Well, that's a question, of course, with Piotr. He loses his stick a lot.
Oh, a lot. What did they say? One of the games last week, he lost it 16 times.
Well,
they said,
yeah. Corey and Ryan, keeping count of that.
I heard that.
Some stick 'em for Christmas, I think, would be a good gift if anybody from the Canes is tuning in.
Yeah,
for Secret Santa.
No question.
But you're right, Ray. It's the Capitals. I said a week ago, we're going to have to find out what the Capitals are. Like, are they really as good as? And they seem to be. I mean, are they as good as the Hurricanes and Rangers? No. New Jersey, I think, came into the season maybe a little overrated, where they are at the top of the Metro now, but they also have like 4 games in hand we have 4 games in hand. So, their winning percentage is like 3rd or 4th. But, I thought the Capitals game was the best game we played this week. And Dmitry Orlov just went off, right? With
he was tremendous.
2 goals plus 3. Yeah. Like every, between Orlov and Chatfield, plus minus in a bubble, irrelevant stat, right? You have to kind of look at it in context. But I think this jumps out enough to make it worthwhile. Chatfield Orlov are a plus 25.
Yes.
In 12 games? I mean, holy smokes, guys. Like, have a season, you two.
I've been talking a lot about those guys on StormTracker. I mean, we really like what they're doing. And, there's a couple of interesting things, too, with what they've done. Obviously, they've moved up to the second pairing. They're playing more minutes, tougher minutes. They're both, obviously, the number 2 pair on the PK as well. And they're doing a super job. And, it's kind of interesting. I mean, we saw Chatfield with 3 points the other night. So, I mean, these guys can both deliver it. They can deliver it defensively, of course, first, but also offensively. And it's kind of brought up that discussion about, losing Shea and Pesci. I mean, the offseason, that was gut-wrenching for a lot of folks. I mean, they just couldn't believe how are we going to get past losing those 2 guys? And so far, really, has not been a problem.
Not at all. And it was, I think everyone around the league, analysts everywhere thought, here's the weak point. A normally strong defense losing 2 major players like that. Yeah. And are Orlov and Chatfield the answers? And who else are they going to get to replace? And when you look at it, the replacements have been fantastic. There's been zero downside. They haven't played bad at all as we start out this season. And further, we're getting more points. Last year was kind of, a downside. We didn't get as many points as we are normally used to playing from the back forward. That's what we love about it, right? It's the defense that are bringing the points forward, and they pinch so well. That's the one thing that I've noticed about Orlov, and mentioned this before. He has learned better, and he probably had this skill all the time, but from what now that I've had a chance to see him more, he picks his times to pinch more astutely. Like he's got the right time, and furthermore, he's got a partner that knows he can cover back, right? Like Chatfield is just amazing. I love everything about him, and it's kind of funny that the supposed experts have kind of poo-pooed on them both, frankly.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ray. And I think that the key here is that Orlov was a great player in Washington. He was he was tremendous. And last year was tough for him. I mean, we've talked a lot about the start of the year last year. I think in the first 7 games, he was minus 11. Okay. I mean, just think about the difference between last year. He was trying to find his way in the Kane system. I mean, it was hard for him. And it's a tough system for a lot of folks. They have to you remember Burns came in and took him a while to kind of get his sea legs and get going. Same thing with Orlov last year. And I think now he's very, very comfortable, of course, with the system, and even more so comfortable with his partner. And you're right about Jalen Chatfield, in my view. This guy is a sleeper. Yeah. He's going to be an incredible defenseman. The Canes got him on a very nice team-friendly deal. And I think he's just going to continue to grow. With those wheels, and he's tough, he's smart. How often do you see him come back and make plays that most people couldn't even consider?
Mm-hmm. Well, and Tom, Brad, I'll jump in here just to say, Brad and I said all along about Orlov being put on the Boeing 777 pairing was probably a great deal of the reason why those numbers were so bad. It was a terrible pairing, and like I said, Boeing. You just had to call it the Boeing duo.
When you have two guys looking to pinch and they don't really know each other yet, you end up with how many turnovers going the other way, or how many times were they both below the net in the defensive zone? It just wasn't a good fit. I mean,
if you look at when the folks saw them put together Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker. A lot of concern in the same regard, right? Because, obviously Shane is offense first and kind of a little bit light on the defensive side. And Walker, too, in his last goal, particularly with Philadelphia, he was really driving offense for them. So, a lot of folks said, how can this pair kind of make it happen? Is it going to be a reprise of the D'Angelo Orlov situation? And I think they've definitely surprised a lot of folks. And, of course, Walker has been more of a stay-at-home guy, which has been interesting, kind of covering as much as he can for Ghost. So, kind of a fun situation that's played out here for the Canes.
It certainly has been. My goodness. Moving on, we had it was the Flyers, the second game, who, the Flyers are kind of enigmatic to me. They're run by Torts, and they have some. They're gonna come at you every night, right?
Yeah.
But I think they have issues in goaltending, and what is their new kid? Mitchov? Is that?
Mishkov.
Mishkov, who got sat the other night. But a young kid like that playing well, and they're never an easy out to me. And that seemed like a game where the Canes didn't play terribly well, but just well enough to get the victory. Am I out to lunch on that?
I don't think. They were they were it was clear they were the better team in general. And you know, they just, I mean, Konechny had, go off King, 4-point game. And the Canes played fine, but they weren't great. But I think that's just one of those games where if you put a high school basketball team up against a college team, the college team's going to win. I mean, it's just, you know, the big thing for me, the takeaway from that game was 6 goals by 6 different individuals, right? I mean, you had Roslovic and Natchez and Jarvis scoring. That's great. But then you get goals from Martinook, Robinson, and Blake. You know, and that's really what drives Hurricanes offense is, you know, we always come back to this, right? Aho's a point per game guy, but you're like, where's the offense, Aho? Like, we need you to score not 3-on-3, but somebody else is picking it up, right? Somebody else is putting the puck in the net. I mean, Blake has done that. Robinson has been a great fit. Martinook is not quite doing his Gretzky impression, but he's doing his Aho impression. I mean, you know,
he's playing well.
So, yeah, I think that's just one of those games where, you know, the team didn't play well, but they were just the better team. That just, you know, wasn't much of a, you know, I don't want to say it wasn't a contest, but the expectation was, yeah, Carolina should win this game, and they did.
But, you know, you brought up an interesting point, I think, too, Brad, that a lot of folks, you know, certainly in the off season, and I was one of them asking the question, where the goal is going to come from. I mean, when you lose the players the Canes lost in the off season, and, you know, you replace them with folks that historically haven't been, you know, big producers, you're trying to figure out, okay, how's this going to work? And you know that part of the strategy is that the young players have to kind of, you know, take their game up another notch. You're looking for Svetch and of course, Natchez to do that. And even Jarvis to some extent. But ultimately, you know, you've got to have some other people delivering, because if teams kind of focus in on those lines, and you think about at one point you've got Svetch, Aho, and Jarvis on one line, and if your second line has, you know, you've got Natchez there, but you don't know what he's going to do based on last year, and you got KK, and what's the situation there? You can go on and on. You can ask a lot of questions. And the new guys, I mean, Roslovic had one decent year, a couple of okay years, but, you know, he hadn't really demonstrated a consistency. Certainly, you know, Robinson has not, again, delivered big numbers. So you're looking at this, trying to figure out how the goals are going to come. And you're right. It's happening by committee.
And not only is it, go ahead, Brad, go ahead.
No, you go, because
I was just going to say, you know how great it is to have a fierce puck retrieval guy like Martinook on the team. Why not add Robinson?
Yeah.
Who is fantastic for puck retrieval too. And the results you're seeing the results because he's been put on a line where he can go retrieve the pucks and Natchez can deliver the goals. I mean, that's the way it's been, and fantastic, right? Like, it's just amazing. Brad, sorry, I jumped in.
No. I was going to say, you know, back to what Tom was just saying, you look at the Penguins game 2 nights later, who are your goal scorers? Roslovic, Robinson, and Martinook.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like we're getting the occasion, like when Jalen Chatfield scores, great. Like, I'm surprised. I'm like, hey, you know, rock on, you know, you go, buddy. But these guys are not just scoring once every now and then. Like, these guys are showing you some consistency in performance, that they've taken their game up a notch. And I think, in my opinion, we cannot underestimate how much different this team is, in part because we have not one time heard somebody's not buying in, right? Team chemistry in hockey is so important. And if it was even one guy in the locker room last year, it doesn't matter who, if one person's not buying in, that affects their line. And that line not playing well affects the other lines, right? And then it's a snowball effect. And the fact that these guys came in and looked like they really came together quickly, I think is a underrated part of what's happened here. I mean, all props to Eric Tulsky and Darren York, and then RBA and the coaching staff and the senior leadership, whether it's Stahl, whether it's Aho, whoever's in the room helping build a team is doing a phenomenal job this year, I think, in terms of these
Eric
guys.
Tulsky,
you can tell.
Yeah, Eric Tulsky to me, and you know, I talk about Tulsky a lot. I think Eric Tulsky is magic. I mean, he was on. You might have seen him on the NHL Network recently, talking about. They were kind of curious about him because he's such a different kind of guy, right? With all his patents and his brilliance. But he was kind of saying that when they went out to pick the players, they literally handpicked these players. And of course, they have the whiteboard and they had all these players. And if these guys are gone, they get these guys. He always says he's got 3 or 4 or 5 different levels of what he's going to do. But he was very clear that, and they used the breadth of the organization, the scouting staff, obviously the coaches, anybody that could be involved were involved in this. And they really decided to get players that they thought were Hurricanes players, like just in their mentality, in their approach to the game, obviously fast players that they felt had upside. And the other challenge, of course, that they had, which makes it even more kind of amazing at this stage of the year, is they were limited in cash. So they had to go get players. They had to put them on deals. And you saw some of the deals and how creative they were. A 6-year deal with Carrier to get him to $2 million, a 5-year deal with Sean Walker to get him like 3.5. I mean, this is not stuff that, you can conjure up. And he's been continuing to do it. This whole deal with Bryce Montgomery, where he puts on some incentive dollars so he can have those available later in the year if they want to bring in a guy like Alexander Nikishin. I mean, this is brilliance, guys. And he's on a different level than most general managers in the league. I mean, we have to understand that. And he's been a guy that's been behind a lot of the moves over the many years. And you wonder why the Canes have consistently been successful. He's quietly been a key part of that.
No
Who'd
question.
have thought the PhD would know so much about team chemistry?
Yeah. He's playing chess. Yeah, there you go. He's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, it would seem. I'm going to ask a Captain Obvious question. I think it's a Captain Obvious question, but I'm going to throw it out there. Is it Rod's system of play and style of play that he's injected that makes it easier for the secondary scoring throughout as an expectation that you can have that you can rely on the secondary scoring? Because the style of play that he puts out there, if you get them playing the right way and everyone buying in, I mean, this style is high risk, high reward, right? Like you got to rely on fitness is a big aspect of it, because playing man-to-man on the ice, playing man-to-man in basketball is hard enough. Playing man-to-man on ice, that is really hard. But because it offers so many opportunities for turnovers and things like that, I think it makes it easier for everyone in the lineup, if they're playing it the right way, to get that chance to score. What's your take? Is the secondary scoring a result of the style of play, or is it finding the right people?
Well, I'll touch on that. I agree with you. I think it is. Don't forget, the intent of the style of the Hurricanes is to be driving the offense all the time. So it's shot, positioning as much as possible to get as many shots as they can, to get opportunities in the offensive zone, which of course reduces the potential for goals against. It is a tough system and it's demanding for sure. And I think you're right on that most teams can't take this on. It's just too much. And a lot of players don't probably want to even play in a style like that, because if you're not getting your job done, it shows up in a hurry. And I think you're right, though. I think the design of the play is to drive offense and very much include the defensive core. And this was something, I don't know if you remember back when even Peter Laviolette, remember when he was successful, he actually was one of the early guys to kind of do that. Mm-hmm. Get the defense involved and really drive the offense. He was a kind of I guess he was breaking some new ground at that point in time. And the play was wonderful. It was offensive. It was fun. It was open. It was great. But I think Brendan Moore's style is very much along those lines, is to push the offense, get the puck up the ice very, very quickly, as you know, get into the offensive zone and get shots, and a lot from the blue line. And interestingly enough, I mean, the Canes have been out shooting other teams 2-1 virtually every game except the last two, which is an interesting thing, right?
Brad, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Rod has taken, and I kind of agree, because I thought the same thing about Laviolette and the systems he brought here. I think that's part of the reason they hired him to be our coach, after the lockout, right?
Yeah.
Rod's put together a system where pieces are interchangeable because, let me take you back to a terrible, terrible time. It's the late 90s, early 2000s, and the NHL defensive cores are all pylons. They're 6'6" and 250 pounds, and they can barely stand up on skates. And they all play a trap system, and it's the most boring thing you've ever seen. And I don't know how most of us made it through, because it was just not fun to watch.
Yeah.
Left wing
in
lock.
Those offenses, you had at any given time 3 players that you needed to defend who might score, and there were 3 players on the ice, the 2 defensemen, the goalie, who you didn't really have to worry about that much, because they're just there to make sure that the puck doesn't go in their own end.
Yes.
And with Rod's system, everybody on the ice, as we've seen, I mean, everybody in our team this year has a goal except for Burns and Chatfield, which is unusual for Burns, at least, not so much Chatfield, but everybody's a threat. And if they're not a threat to get the goal, they're passing. And the passing this year has been much, much improved over both the beginning and the good chunk of last year. A lot more tape to tape, a lot fewer things that are too far out or in the skates, right? So when you use Rod's system to push the opponent to make mistakes, I mean, that's really the purpose of the forecheck, is just, can you get them to turn over? Can you just get them, take away time and space and make them make a decision? And if it's a wrong decision enough times, you're going to capitalize. And when you do that, and 5 of the 6 guys on the ice are a threat to score, that should drive offense. And what we're seeing now, though, is Rod has taken that system and said, well, there is room for Natchez or Blake to spin a Rama and try and go solo, because, hey, if you have the opportunity, right, the whole purpose of the offense is to open up those types of opportunities. And now he seems to be giving guys the green light to take advantage of said opportunities, right? Selfish hostage. When appropriate for you, Ray. Right. If you get the signal from the coaches, when appropriate, be a prick.
You know what? There you go. Thank you. I was ready. And the signal is normally this, and no one can see it, what I'm doing. But if you watched Ted Lasso, you know what that signal is. They haven't used it quite yet.
I would love to see Rod get that signal, although it cost him 25 G's.
It probably would. I'll say one thing, though, and correct me if I'm wrong. What I've noticed at the start of the season, further to the style of play, which hasn't changed since Rod has brought it in,
right,
I'm seeing the team going to the net more. I'm seeing players crashing the net, or we're scoring a lot of in-tight goals and getting rebounds and stuff like that and putting them away. Look at the Flyers game. We all thought we were going to overtime, right? We all thought we were going to overtime, and wouldn't you know it, boom, goal from Natchez after a scramble in front of the net. I mean, we threw in the Jarvis threw in the empty netter as well, but it was Natchez going to the front of the net, and that's one of the things Brad and I know. See, Tom, you're looking at Brad, and you see he's a little sparse on the hair up on the top. If I took my hat off, you'd see, I'm doing better. But we pulled our hair out all season long for 3 seasons. Yes. Go to the net. Power play, everything. And we're seeing that more now. There seems to be a willingness to take the punishment for the result. Is that, and maybe that's more Captain Obvious than the first question. What do you guys think?
I'll take it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Andrei Svechnikov, I think this year has been the definition of what you're saying. He's at 1.08 goals per game, or I'm sorry, points per game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it. Then when you start thinking like, oh, like he's got a ton of assists, right? He's got 5 goals and 9 assists on the year.
Right.
But look where they're all coming from, right? He's putting that big frame of his, he's using it as the power forward that we want him to be. And then he's parking it near the net, and he's getting deflections, and he's able to get those passes that are those lateral movements that goalies just have a hard time with, and pucks are going in. So,
well, don't forget we did have Steph Nason last year, so there was there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. I'm not sure it's to that extent, maybe, Ray, that has changed that much. I think the way the offense is being driven by the point guys, they're getting a lot of shots in on net and forcing saves, which are leaving rebounds. We saw a lot of that last night. We saw a ton of them last night. So I think definitely there's, some of the guys, we have less skill up front, so they're more likely to be kind of in there mucking around. And I think that's part of the strategy. But if you look at a guy like Jack Roslovic, I mean, most of his goals have been, not necessarily in close. He's picking corners and getting great shots off. So I'm not sure if it's changed dramatically. I think there's a little bit more for sure. But I think a lot of it, again, is just the Canes trying to get lots of shots on the opposition. And the defense core is quite good at that. As we've seen, they're getting them through.
Let's take a look at the week ahead. We hinted at it. Vegas is on Monday night.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple more games after that, Brad. We got Utah. And what's the other one?
You got Ottawa on Saturday.
And that's back at home, correct?
And that's at home. And then we'll record before the Blues on Sunday. So you do have, one of your back-to-backs in November.
Yeah.
But 3, so you lose to the Avs. It was close. At some point, you're going to drop one.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they put Martin in net, because I was hoping they would do that and save Kochetkov for the Knights, because the Knights are consistently been one of the best teams in the league the last few years, and I want to see how we match up.
I'd love to see that, and you're right, Kochetkov get in there on that. Utah and Utah and Ottawa and St. Louis.
Yeah.
If we're looking at the points in those 4 games, how many points are you expecting out of these next 4 games? 8 total possible. What are we looking at? I mean,
I think it'd be unlikely to expect to win all 4. Just because you're talking about probably winning 12 of 13, which is
yeah.
I don't know if they're that good. I think they'll win 3 of the games. For sure they can beat Utah, and I think for sure they can beat Ottawa. The question would be St. Louis. Now St. Louis got crushed last night by the Capitals, so they're not very happy. They're probably cranky right now, which isn't going to help. But
no, you're right. Yeah, you're right. What do you? So you think we're looking at like maybe 4 out of the? Is that a fair assessment?
I think we have a real shot at 6. Again, we'll probably get 4, but we could get 6.
Yeah, Brad, what about you?
I'd go with 6. For me, the Vegas game's a toss-up, right?
Yeah.
We have a great opportunity to win, I think, in Vegas. You should beat Utah. You should beat Ottawa.
Yeah.
The only reason, you should, honestly, the Blues are worse than Utah is right now in terms of points. But you're getting the Blues again on the back half of a back-to-back. We lost to them earlier this year, and I think if it wouldn't have been a back-to-back, we win that game, right? Because the boys just were tired for some of it.
Yes.
So I think without the back-to-back, the Blues game is a win. The only reason in my mind you don't pencil that in necessarily is because it's the back-to-back. So I think 6 points is reasonable. If they got more, I would not be surprised. Like I could see them getting 7. I could, 8 is what we want as a fan, right? Which is probably not realistic, but I think 6 is certainly doable.
Well, here's a question, guys. Here's a question for you, though.
Sure.
You have to think that Martin Necas and Jack Roslovic are going to quiet down a little bit.
That's fair.
And they're
That's fair.
driving. They're driving. A key part of the offense for sure. So if we think they're going to cool off a little bit, how does that affect the Canes?
Oh, Natchez has been in on pretty much every goal we've scored. So if he cools down,
Yeah,
it's
it's the next
it's
man
tough.
up. It's
Yeah,
because he's
that's a
shooting
good
at
call.
27%. Roslovic's at 25. Blake is at 22. Robinson's at 18. I mean, the guys
Those are
are
hard numbers to continue to do, though.
They are.
Let's be candid. I mean, you couldn't have foreseen the performance of either of those guys for sure, and to sustain that over an extended period is not easy. They're going to have their ups and downs, and that's the only thing I'm asking is somebody ready to take the gauntlet? I mean, obviously, Martinuk was trying to do his part, but ultimately, we can't expect these guys to deliver continuously. In fact, last night, I don't know if you were watching Roslovic, but I thought he was invisible.
Yeah, he was not as strong as normal. And in fact, you could see the line change. The lines that Rod put out for the third period was a perfect example of that, because Roslovic was not where he needed to be, and therefore he got bumped down the list on the line, and we saw the Rod Blendamore lineups, right? Brad, you did copyright that, did you not?
Yeah.
Blendamore.
I think Brad, yeah, let's say he's the first one to say that I ever heard of it. But I think, Tom, when you put that out to us, I think the best part about that particular situation that you laid out is that we have Aho, we've got Svechnikov, we've got Jarvis. I mean, there are guys who are labeled as more of the scoring threat that you can fall back on. I mean, that's what's great about having so many points and so much offensive power coming from guys like Roslovic, like Natchez, places where we didn't see them in the past.
Yes.
So that when they do cool down, then no one's panicking because, Svech is playing well. Aho's quietly getting in on all the goals. So I think we'll be okay in that regard. If they cool down, we've got pretty good players to pick up the slack. Brad,
I was going to agree with Ray. It's, not that Aho, Jarvis, Svech are playing poorly at all. They're not. I mean, they're playing really well. They're still getting assists. But at some point, when other guys cool down, those guys need to start putting pucks in the back of the net. I mean, how many times has KK put one off the post this year?
My gosh.
And going back into last year's even worse, right? Svechnikov, same thing. Like he's been so close on so many chances. So the hope, right, is if one guy cools down, hopefully somebody else finds their shot, because guys like Aho have been really close on a number of times, and they just haven't gone in, so they don't show up on the score sheet. So hopefully, the puck luck just moves from one person to another, and we don't hit the doldrums like we have in the past.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a good assessment. Yeah, I think that's a good assessment.
If we're gonna play poorly for a stretch, like let's do it in November and December, and get back to playing good hockey once we hit the spring. So
yeah. So Brad, we've had a great episode, but I got to tell you, I kind of dropped the ball and we glossed over it, and it was hit on in passing. When we introduced Tom, I failed to give him a chance to pimp his show. And Tom, I'm listening to you, and I've had this said to me. I had 20 years in broadcasting, and a lot of people told me that, wow, you can really hear your voice. Like you've got that whatever voice. And I'm listening to you, and I'm wondering, did you have any time in broadcasting too? Because man, you really, you've got a great sound for yourself, and it makes sense that you have a show. The problem is we didn't let you pimp it. So let's hear about your show. Tell us what it's about. Tell us where we find it. Like,
Sure.
let's get this all out there.
Well, thank you. Hey, thanks a lot, Ray. That's awesome. I did take training for broadcasting. I was going to become a broadcaster. And I was actually living in Edmonton at the time. I was working for Procter & Gamble, if you can believe it. And I decided I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And I took a course at NATE.
Nate, I was going to ask you, did you go to Nate? Okay, there you go. Love it.
So I did have an offer, and it was up. I can't remember where it was. I don't know if it was Wetaskiwin or somewhere like that. And it was all the time I could stand on the air, and it was for peanuts. And I thought, I just can't change my lifestyle that much. But anyway, funny story on that.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I guess, I've always wanted to do something like what we're doing now with StormTracker. We're on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. It's StormTracker at StormTracker23. And I wanted to do that forever. And I finally retired from work last year. And
Nice.
my wife said, why don't you just launch a YouTube channel? And I thought, okay. It wasn't quite as easy as it looked, but yeah, it's been a great amount of fun. And for me, it's just talking hockey. Hey, man, there's nothing greater than that in my life, and I love it. And talking Hurricanes hockey, and so it's been a lot of fun. And I really thank the supporters and the folks who've joined us for checking it out and viewing us and listening. We're also on several of the audio podcast sites as well. So it's been a lot of fun, and we'll keep doing it. And hopefully we can get you guys on sometime. Join us on StormTracker.
Yeah, we'd be happy to join you. And here's the thing, Tom, like Brad and I, we never even remotely considered doing YouTube because look at our faces. I mean, we want to
radio for sure.
That's right. Yeah, I had a face for radio as well. So, look, remind everyone again where they can find you because, dude, you're bringing it today, and I want to make sure we really emphasize that. Throw it out for us one more time.
Sure. Yeah, it's again YouTube channel at StormTracker23. Okay, is going to be youtube.com at StormTracker23. And they can just do StormTracker and they'll eventually find me as well if they just want to search in the YouTube search bar. But it's one word, and make sure that they just put in StormTracker one word. So yeah, but hey, listen, this is great fun, and always love to talk hockey for sure.
Tom,
thank you
so sure. Much.
I've enjoyed it. I've listened to a couple of the episodes, especially when you had like Katie and Aaron on, who I've known through social media for a long time, right, and listened to their takes. So it's been a lot of fun. So we were glad that we were able to get on today.
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to come on again sometime, guys. But let's make sure we get you on for sure in the days ahead. We'll bring you on and we'll have some fun and talk Canes hockey.
100%. Yes. Maybe we can get all three of you on too sometime.
That would be even more fun, and I could bring you guys on with them. Of course, we do a couple a month. They're part of my insider crew, so we do 2 a month together. We're actually doing one later on this afternoon, so we're busy.
Awesome.
Is the StormTracker really ready for the Statler and Waldorf Hurricanes podcast team? Like, really, that's who we are. We consider ourselves the old folks who are sitting in the up there with Statler and Waldorf. That's us through and through.
For sure.
What a great show, Brad. This has been so much fun.
That was a lot of fun and informative.
Yes. And we've covered a lot.
Kids, it's educational. Tell your parents.
Tell your parents. Tell your friends. Make sure you tune in. There is something missing though, Brad, and see, this happens to me all the time. I really wish I could get over this.
The age. You're getting older.
It is me being older. But I got it. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us by email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.